Hello everybody, it's Julia here from the Highly Sensitive Tarot, and I'm back today to do, to have a look at a couple of the decks that I've been using while I've been doing the tag Back to Our Tarot Roots, which is by Kate at Moonflower Moment. I think we're in week 3, and it was called Patterns and Pathways. And so we're looking at colours, body language, the elements, all of these kind of things in the cards, and looking at how they might affect how you interpret the cards or read the cards. And the two decks that I've been working with this week are very different decks. We've got the Game of Thrones Tarot and the Anna Kay. They're obviously very different decks, so it's not easy to compare them as such, but I thought we'd just have a look at those things that I just spoke about and just see whether I would read these cards differently because of it. I mean, I'm sure that I will, but I just thought that there would be an interesting exercise anyway as I'm doing the hashtag Back to Our Tarot Roots. So just looking at these cards immediately, the Game of Thrones is obviously much more sombre in its colour palette and its images. The Anna Kay has all this lovely blue and yellow sky. We only have a person in the Fool, whereas we have people in all the cards in the Anna Kay. We can already feel, can't we, a sort of a menace about the Game of Thrones tarot, which I really do very much like. Whereas the Anna Kay is much more light-hearted, and, you know, it makes me feel happy, the Anna Kay, just looking at it. I think the colours, quite often the facial expressions of the people in the deck, even though a lot of them some of them I don't really like. Some of the faces are a bit weird, but generally as a deck, I think it's a warm deck and a happy deck, whereas the Game of Thrones is most definitely not. So what have we got here? We've got with the Fool, I mean, this is very, very clear, isn't it? We've got little Tyrion there, who's scared. You know, we can see that he's scared, he's afraid, he's about to set off on this big adventure. And his risk of getting caught is quite high, so he's scared, we can see that. Whereas the Fool in the Anna Kay is a much more traditional Fool. It's somebody happy and carefree, and, you know, he looks like he's not got a care in the world. You know, he's smiling, his eyes are closed, he's trusting in the process. Whereas Tyrion here is not trusting anything or anyone. So when we look at the people in the Anna Kay, we've got the Fool looking to the left, which is to the past. The Ace of Pentacles is looking straight ahead and the present. We've got these two looking to the future, and the Ace of Cups is kind of looking down, but that's a kind of reflective. I'm pretty sure in, what was it I learned when I was a nurse? I can't even remember the name of it now, but it's about body language and often where your eyes go to sort of means a different part of your brain is processing things, and kind of if you're looking down, you're often engaging in your emotional state. So I'm not surprised to see that there for the Ace of Cups. So I'm not sure how many cards we will get through, but we'll do a few until I'm fed up of talking, or I think I've talked long enough. So for the twos, again, we've got something a very different energy here, haven't we, between the magicians? I mean, I can't honestly say this is an old-fashioned sort of traditional magician, because usually the magician is seen in the daytime. I think how this has been done is that you get the magician and the high priestess together there. But I suppose I kind of don't like that really, because I see the magician as being more your consciousness and the high priestess more of your unconscious. So I would have probably put the magician with the sun, because he also represents willpower. But anyway, the magician in the Game of Thrones, this is Littlefinger, isn't it? And just the colour of the background of this card makes you immediately think, well, it's kind of danger, isn't it? It's red for danger. He's got all his jewels on, his fine cloak. He's got all his things around him. And, you know, he's the brothel master, isn't he? He's a rich man in Game of Thrones. And we can already see here this kind of what feels like a sleight of hand with his hands. He certainly has more of a feeling of the shadow aspects of the magician. He's not really somebody to trust, is he? He's looking directly at you, and I would imagine he wants something from you. Do you know what I mean? He's going to manipulate you to try and get what he wants out of you. Whereas the magician in the Anna Kay doesn't have any of those kind of sinister or manipulative qualities. But like I said, I'm not used to seeing the magician at night time. But it's a benign image, if you know what I mean. And then looking across at the suits, you know, with the pentacles here, we can clearly see that kind of pressure that he's under to perform and to juggle and to get things right. Whereas we don't see that so much here with the Two of Coins. We've got a Lannister always pays his debts, which I guess in its own way is a pressure, isn't it? To perform, to pay the debts. With the Wands here, we've got a man who, you know, is sitting under a dark sky. He doesn't know where to go. He's fed up. He's upset. We can see that. I don't necessarily always read this card as somebody being upset or fed up, but it's about choices, isn't it? And we can see that Daenerys there is making a choice. She's looking out. She's thinking about what to do, but there's no sign of any real distress there. It's quite a neutral image, I think. With the Two of Swords, with the Anna Kay, we can see this man has just completely turned his back on the swords. You know, he's up in his head. We can see that. He's just ignoring those things. He's not dealing with those at the moment. He's not going to deal with the emotions behind the swords. He's just not dealing with it. Whereas in the Game of Thrones here, we've got little Arya, and bless her, if I remember rightly, she's kind of in a state of between childhood and adulthood, between life, between death. And that's kind of represented here by the swords, because her wooden sword was like her training sword. And she's also got her stabby sword, you know. If you didn't know Game of Thrones, would you be able to interpret that in the same way? I don't know. I think you could, because they've whitened out her eyes, so it looks like she's not really present, is she? Which we also see here. So would I read those differently? They are a kind of a similar energy, aren't they? I think this one is the most avoidant, really, because he's actually turned his back, hasn't he, on the swords and the emotions. I'm not sure. And then we've got the cups here, we've got the wedding vows, and we've got this really cute couple here of this new relationship. So this has got a much lighter feel to it than the Game of Thrones yet again. Okay, so with the High Priestess here, these are very different energies yet again, aren't they? We've got what I would say is a very traditional High Priestess here in blue at night. She's got the moon cycles. Her cloak is half in the water. She's looking off to the past. She's kind of reflecting. She's looking back at things that are kind of secretive and hidden, I guess, isn't she? Whereas Melisandre here from the Game of Thrones, she's a fire priestess. So she's a very different creature, really. And she's looking ahead. She's kind of looking almost at you, engaging with you, which is not often what we see with the High Priestess, is it? Because the High Priestess is often in her own world, whereas this High Priestess is a much more of a political character. She was on a mission, wasn't she? She was actively involved in things, whereas this is a much more passive energy. And I think Kate had said about extrovert and introvert cards. Well, this is much more extroverted. This is much more introverted, isn't it? With the Three of Coins, I like that we can see people here working together. We can see that they've planned and focused and worked hard, collaborated together. Whereas in this one, we just see one person. So we might not know that this was about collaboration and sharing. We can see the planning and the focus, but not necessarily the collaboration. Three of Spears, they're very similar cards. The Three of Swords, well, the heart on fire with the swords, that's typically Game of Thrones. And then with the Anna Kay, we've got this very sad thing here with this woman who's like leaving this man. She's spurned his romantic offerings of his rose. She's taking the swords. They're both looking very miserable. They're under a grey sky in the snow. You know, we can feel the coolness of the energy in that card, probably much more than this one, even though there's snow and things. And then the Three of Cups, that's a very similar energy, isn't it, as well? Okay, so for the Empress and the Fours, do you know, even though I love this deck, and I find it really warm, I do not like the Empress. I do not like the expression on her face. She's very much an Empress. We can see her fertility and all her curves and the flowers and the fruits and the animals. I just don't... There's something not very nice about her face. I don't really know what it is, but I don't like that. Out of the two, I like Daenerys better, even though she doesn't look like what we might associate as an empress a lot of the time. You know, she's dressed in blue. She doesn't look particularly maternal. She's not pregnant. But she is a matriarch, isn't she? And she's a leader. She's a warrior in her own right. And she's standing on her ship looking out. I think they're probably about to go into battle of some kind. So she's a strong feminine archetype, isn't she? Whereas I don't know what this one is. Looking at the pentacles here, we can see that energy of kind of holding on to things here in the Game of Thrones. He's holding on to his pentacles. He's surrounded himself by structure and security. No one's coming in there, are they? And then in this one, we can see this boy who's stealing all the pentacles. He's got all the apples. He's got all the wood. He's got everything. And he doesn't care about these people that might be cold or hungry. So they're kind of different things, aren't there? Because there's an implied cruelty in this card, I think. But that one may be more just protective. I'm not sure. The spears and the rods are fairly similar, even though we've got more people. It looks like you can see they're going to have a party. Whereas this is just nice, isn't it? They're just having a nice time. In the swords, we've got, I think, what is a priest laying out a dead body because there's stones on the eyes, compared to somebody who's poorly and being looked after. So they're very different. Very different. And again, I could probably say this was an extroverted card and that was a more introverted card, perhaps. Looking at the cups, well, poor old Sansa in this card here, she hasn't got a lot to be grateful for. I certainly wouldn't be taking the cup from Littlefinger there. So for that card to all be in blue and to be very somber is very fitting, I think. Whereas in this card here, he's just being a horrid old grump, isn't he? He's got all these lovely women waiting on him and cooking for him, and he just doesn't care. He's just sat there ignoring them, looking grumpy, really. So again, I think you would read those quite differently. Okay, so for the Emperor and the fives, well, the Emperor here, we can see the structure and the formality. You know, he's got his checkerboard floors, which is very Masonic. It's very traditionally masculine and male, isn't it? He sat on his throne, surrounded by his shields, but he could almost be an emperor in name only, like a figurehead, couldn't he, really? Whereas Jon Snow in the Game of Thrones here, you know, he's a warrior. He's an active emperor. So again, this could be an extrovert. This could be an introvert energy. I'm trying to just look at my little notes about, you know, because we were talking about colours, body language, elements, introverts, extroverts. Yeah. So with the pentacles and the coins here, we've got poor Arya who's begging. We've also got a mum and baby that are being very grateful for being given something. There's something more kindly about this card, isn't there, than this one? Even though we've got the rain, and there's just something a little bit of a warmer feeling. I think the facial expressions of these people giving, you know, we don't see anyone giving anything to Arya, do we? With the spears and the rods here, if I remember rightly, this is like a training exercise in the Five of Spears. There's nothing troublesome there. They're just honing their skills. They're training. It's quite a neutral card, I would say. Oh, how did we get to the... Did I take a card off? I think I have, haven't I, somewhere along the lines? Or have I got them mixed up? Four of Swords, 5, there we go. I thought I was looking at the wrong card. So, yeah, the... oh, what have I done? I've... 5, 6... See, what am I doing? 5 of Pentacles. Look at that, look. Sorry, ignore everything I just said about these. How stupid of me. I'm looking but not seeing, am I? So again, in this card, these are very similar, aren't they? This poverty, this hardship. No one's giving them anything. They're just suffering. So these are very similar cards, I think. And with the 5 of Spears and Rods, like I said, this is kind of a training exercise, whereas this is competition, real competition, isn't it? And, you know, they're all drinking, there's alcohol being drunk, you know, and that this card, there feels like there's more potential for trouble for the loser. Do you know what I mean? Somebody to get out of their pram and have a big strop and not be happy that they've lost. Whereas this has a more disciplined feel about it. This is more neutral than this one, I think. With the swords, we've got a similar thing here. We've got innocent people being victimized. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. Again, obviously, you would have to know Game of Thrones perhaps to know how he is being victimized and what the threat there is, because it's not so clear in the card. It's more neutral, whereas we can very clearly see the threat in the Anarchy. And the cups, we've got similar images. We've got people with their heads bowed. We've got the rain here, and the sorrow. But we can feel the sorrow very much in the Game of Thrones card as well. They're just very different colours. But we can still feel the emotions of them. So I'm not sure that I would read those differently, actually. Okay, so we've got the Hierophant and the sixes now. And this is Varys, I think, who's like an advisor to the Lannisters in Game of Thrones. And he's right to be looking. I mean, he's got a little bit of a concerned look on his face. He's not entirely comfortable, is he? And he's right to, because the family are not to be trusted, are they? And I think he was like, he had lots of little people running about gathering information for him that he called the little birds, which is why I think there's all these birds around him. But, you know, his position within that family was very precarious. He may well have been an advisor, but that's only if he was bringing the right information, if you like. Whereas the high priest here is a very old-fashioned kind of Hierophant. He's got his eyes closed. He's got his structure around him, his tradition around him. I would imagine he's very much more secure in himself than this one. So I would certainly read those differently. With the coins, we can see people being given things. This one is more from the point of view of the person giving. This is probably more from the point of view of the person receiving. We can see the weather. Yeah. The Six of Rods and the Six of Spears, well, these are quite different, aren't they? I think how I would read these. You know, with the Six of Spears here, Daenerys is obviously conquering a city, but we don't see anyone celebrating. We don't see the sun. We don't see like all these happy faces. There's no obvious victory here. We see her surrounded by all her guards. So we can only assume that if this is a victory, it's maybe not a happy one. It's something that maybe has been taken by force from you. Or you have taken something by force. Whereas this one, the Six of Rods, we can see the celebration here. We can see these people clapping and cheering and happy for him. Whatever he's been victorious about, he's getting all that validation. The sun is positive. It's a much warmer card than this one, isn't it? I think the Six of Swords, they're very similar. And the Six of Cups, this one, this is Sansa and Jon, and they're sort of like sharing a moment, looking back at their childhoods, and it's all very sentimental and kind of thoughtful, isn't it? It's night time, they're having a drink, and they're just sharing some memories. So there's something comfortable and familiar about that. Whereas with this cups here, this has almost got like a more romantic feel to it to me. This is like somebody wishing on a star, and this dreamy romance of like she's wanting to bring some, it feels to me more like she's wanting to bring some kind of love into her life, or she's waiting for somebody to come. I'm not really sure, but they're very different cards, aren't they? Okay, for the lovers and the sevens, I'm not sure how much more I'll talk because I'm getting up for nearly half an hour, aren't I? So with the lovers here, we've obviously got the Anna K here, which is a very mature romance. This is a relationship that has endured. You can see they've got their dog there. They're surrounded by their flowers. They're an older couple. They're very comfortable with each other. Whereas the Game of Thrones, obviously these two have not known each other very long. Their relationship came about through some kind of hardship, really, and their relationship does not endure. But if you don't know that, I guess you might look at these cards and think there was a little bit more romance and passion about this one, whereas this is comfortable and warm, and we can see how these people have kind of grown together, can't we? So they're quite different. I think the Seven of Pentacles is a very similar energy. The Seven of Wands, it's quite similar again, isn't it? We've got that somebody's defending their territory, somebody's under threat. This one, he looks a bit more like he's more forcefully attacking, but we can see the emotion in this card, I guess, more than this one, can't we? Because he's got his mask on and, you know, he's got his teeth gritted, and we can really see with the dark clouds in the sky, we can see that conflict and that effort really there, can't we? The Seven of Swords, I mean, we've clearly got a thief here. Not sure what's going on in the Game of Thrones when he looks like he's defending himself. That could easily be, yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on in that card, to be honest. And the Seven of Cups, I think I quite like this card more because we can see different things. We can see that some things are positive and some things not so much, whereas in this one, it's like the cups are just running over, aren't they? We can't see necessarily so much of the choices there. We can just see that there is a lot of emotion around because there's a lot of cups. Okay, so the Chariot and the Eights here. Again, with this Chariot from the Anna K, with this really bright sunlight here and all the yellow sky, the Chariot just sort of flying off into the sky, this is like a positivity about getting out into the world and exploring and learning things, isn't it? Whereas the Chariot here from the Game of Thrones just looks like yet more struggle, yet more conflict. I mean, this is obviously the vehicle that Daenerys gets out into the world, the dragon, but, you know, all the Dothraki here are cheering, and I guess they're raising an energy, aren't they, through their actions, whereas this person is on their own, just sort of getting on with it, really, having a positive attitude and getting out there. So I would probably read those quite differently, I think, in a spread. With the 8 of coins, we've got somebody on their own who looks very skillful, and then we have a kind of apprentice, somebody learning. So they're very different, aren't they? They would definitely be read differently. The 8 of spears and rods, well, we see this movement, we see all of this fast moving energy here with all of these spears. But in this one, we see kind of a message, and possibly a romantic message as well, because it looks like it could be a knight and she's on a balcony. And so again, not quite so clear. Quite different, I think, aren't they? In the 8 of swords, I can't remember her name. She's the big lady, the big lady knight. She's sort of stuck behind all these swords here, under a tree. And if I remember rightly, she was in a very dire situation. I think they're about to cut her hand off. So it's not, you know, this card is red for danger, perhaps, again. And I wouldn't say that it was her perception of danger that was the problem here. I think she was in very real danger. So it's a different thing from this one, isn't it? Whereas we can see clearly here, this is about perception, because the sky is blue. She's in beautiful clothes. And then in the mirror, she's in bandages and rags, and it's raining. So it's very clear there what that's about. I think the 8 of Cups are very similar. You know, I remember here, this is like the, oh, what are they called? The Men of the Wall. I can't remember. But this might well be John going out into the snow, leaving the comfort and security of the barracks and his men. And he's sort of striding out on his own. And here we've got another very sad or difficult circumstance. You know, we've got what looks like a happy couple there, and somebody is leaving. You know, they're leaving the warmth and the glow of this lovely yellow light in the home, and they're heading out into the night on their own. So again, I might read those differently just because this person is leaving these two people at home. Do you see what I mean? I think that's probably as much as I'll talk about, because I don't want to run on too long. I think half an hour is long enough for a video. It's a shame I couldn't get through all the cards, but I'd probably be an hour, wouldn't I, if I wanted to do that. But this was just useful, I think, really, to have a look at two very different decks and look at what the colours, the feel, the energies, the elements, the body language of people, how that all really does influence quite strongly how you would read cards, which is brilliant, isn't it? I've often, you know, when I've been telling friends and people about tarot cards, and, you know, there's 78 cards, and even though there are thousands of different sorts of decks, there are 78 cards generally. And so everybody sort of looks at you like, well, how do you read them? How do you interpret? How are they different? And I think this has demonstrated very clearly, hasn't it, how they are very different and how you would read them very differently. It's quite basic stuff, really. This is the sort of stuff that you learn when you're learning to read tarot cards. But I suppose it's not very often that we sit down with two decks and really compare the feel and the energy and the colours and of each of the decks, and just see how you might then interpret them. So I've enjoyed doing this. So do say hello. I love to hear from everybody, and I'll see you all again soon. Sending you all my love, and I'll see you again soon.